rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
All right, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show on this, Tuesday edition. I almost forgot my days there, but it's getting so crazy after all the stuff that's happening with Arizona and Nevada. But today is a different show. I was really interested in what's happening with this company, FTX. A friend of mine came to mind. He's been on before. Both R.C. Williams and Julianna Ormond have been on before to talk about cryptocurrency, every man's guide to cryptocurrency. And they warned us about some of the things that might be transpiring. They're back today. They are from Sherloc Market Research. And today we're just going to talk about all things FTX, what you need to know. Whatever both R.C. Williams and Julianna Ormond are going to just kind of fill in the gaps for us, give us details, things we should know, things that we should watch out for, so on, et cetera. So, guys, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show podcast.
Carl, blessed to be back with you, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So I was telling you guys offline, this stuff was blowing up. And I'm sitting here thinking, I need to talk about this stuff. And I'm thinking of you. And I'm like, I need to contact RC. And then I look down on my phone and there you are. And I'm like, just a straight up sign that I'm a straight up procrastinator while you're being vigilant. But I'm glad you texted me because it is something that we need to talk about. Obviously, this has gone completely nuts. This FTX basically disappeared overnight, but I don't think that's necessarily true. And that's kind of what I want you guys to get into, because you guys have kind of been warning about this, and the government is getting their hand into cryptocurrency. They want to be able to control this, obviously. But at the same token, this guy, what's his name? Sam Bankman-Fried.
Yes, SBF, for those who don't want to say the whole name. He's got 3 letters now. So
okay, the notorious SBF. All right. Did you guys? Let me ask you guys this: did you guys smell a rat with this FTX? I mean, even before we get into the government stuff, were there any indicators that this guy was a fraud? That this what transpired here? Because this thing seemingly crashed overnight, but I don't necessarily believe that it could crash overnight. There had to be some indicators leading up to this.
Yeah, Carl. So it was an odd set of circumstances, which seems to be always how we start these types of stories. So SBF obviously has connections around the world. And this has been pointed out by some people over the weekend as this stuff really started to fall apart. His connections to MIT, which seems to be where a lot of these evil things start. I mean, the Boston Fed works directly with MIT on fintech or financial technology. Sam is very connected to the school. He obviously went to MIT. His co-founders did. The current CEO of Leader Research, which is basically the hedge fund clearinghouse for FTX. Another one, her dad is a leading voice at MIT and an instructor. Here's what's also interesting, Carl, is that Gary Gensler, who is the current head, the chairman of the SEC, and was the former head of the CFTC, which is really important. We'll get to that in a minute. Was also intimately connected and taught at MIT. So all of these people are connected. And then the other part of it is you see kind of this injection of Silicon Valley coming in. So FTX grew rapidly. So you give a young person who maybe is intelligent a ton of money and a ton of power. And Sequoia, which as an investment firm is legendary in the Silicon Valley for funding startups that became huge. And Andreessen Horowitz, A to Z, which is another one that is huge. They put tons of money into this thing. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars. And then when everything fell apart, they just sent out letters to their investors saying, well, we wrote it down to zero. Oops, but it's not the end of the world. We're completely okay. So all of these things happen, Carl, in succession. And back in September, we looked at a piece that actually was first released on Yahoo, where SBF was quoted basically saying that, regulation needs to happen. There are a lot of scam-like players out there in the crypto space. The government needs to step in here, right? But the CFTC would be much better than the SEC.
It's all story.
Wow.
It's how
Wow.
they just pull things together to create the narrative they need to accomplish the things that they want to do. In conclusion, is what they're doing.
Yeah.
So this guy, it essentially what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, was working in cahoots with the federal government, MIT, so on, et cetera. He was getting his cake, if you will, but also he was giving the federal government or inviting the federal government to get involved in the crypto, which is totally antithetical to what crypto is supposed to be about, is it not?
You're correct, Carl. So here's where it starts to get weird. And this is what we've talked about all along in the Randall Crater cryptocurrency case, is that the government agencies, so you've got the DOJ, the FBI, the SEC, and the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, all working together to get control of cryptocurrency regulation. So it's almost like, one would think that these players are intimately connected in a way that seems odd and dangerous. And the fact that the current head of the SEC and the former head of the CFTC has made statements over the last few months that have basically said, we're going to pave the way for regulators to come in and take this over, right? And basically pick winners and losers in the crypto space. And the Wall Street Journal wrote about it extensively. But Carl, it gets worse. In that Yahoo piece where SBF was quoted, the other part was bipartisan legislation with a rep from Arkansas on the Republican side, Congressman Boozman, and Debbie Stabenow from Michigan, where they had come up with bipartisan legislation that would basically allow the CFTC to regulate crypto. Odd timing, because the day before that, the ruling came down in the Crater case, which we'll get to in a second, because what the CFTC has done and their incompetence is on a completely different level. The timing was really convenient that this happened the day after that happened. And right after that, FTX saw spikes, right? Because they were looked at as almost a savior in, well, now I'm going to be safe in the cryptocurrency space because of all of this happening.
Oh my God! I want to get your take, RC and Juliana. There are some more connections that we're learning about the connections with Ukraine. His parents were very well connected. Am I reading the right piece? Yeah, at both of them at Stanford Law. His mother also leads Mind the Gap, this left-wing political action committee that raises money for the Democrat Party from Silicon Valley. So all of these people are interconnected. These are people essentially, just going along with big tech, that are working in cahoots. This is fascism, for God's sakes. Working in cahoots with the federal government in order to, for one, when it comes to big tech and social media, they want to be able to censor our First Amendment rights. But when it comes to guys like this guy, he seems to be working as a basically an insider for the federal government to make sure that there's no financial freedom when it comes to, the federal government. Obviously, the federal government doesn't want cryptocurrency or anything like that to be able to take off without them being able to control it and regulate it. And as you said, RC, in essence, I think this guy was just trying to become an elite and shut the door behind him. Am I wrong in saying that?
So you're right, Carl, but there's actually a bit more. So let's talk a minute about these connections, right? Because I think Fox News has actually finally reported on this. SBF's donations to Democratic candidates in the DNC was somewhere north of $36 million through FTX. And obviously you talked about the connection as well with his parents. It's just odd to me now that we're seeing back in May, FTX partnered up with Ukraine to set up a crypto fund to support Ukraine. And now what we're seeing, in addition to the Democratic candidates, is that an organization associated with Mitch McConnell also received money from that FTX fund that was ran by SBF.
Money laundering.
So What do you have? As Julianna just said so eloquently, you've got a money laundering operation. So here's the question to ask, Carl. People have said, well, look, SBF's going to prison. This is it. These guys are going to prison. But are they really? So were they just kind of misguided kids on a power trip and they're super connected? Or did they do the job that they were supposed to do to help to move something else? And either maybe A, it takes forever for them to show up in court, or B, it just kind of goes away. Because right now we just got a piece in right before we started the show that SBF is now trying to raise money to pay back investors. How much you want to bet a big chunk of that comes back to pay them back to help this go away?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Is there, I had heard about the connections with Mitch McConnell. Are there any other Republicans that you're aware of that may have benefited from FTX?
At this point, Carl, we don't know. We're still digging. And there are some other folks that do a great job with this stuff that are doing the same. We're all kind of collaborating, saying, here's what I found. Here's what I found. Right. And so we're digging. But the old adage, we mentioned this in our newsletter from the headlines yesterday, where there's smoke, there's fire. So don't be surprised. One other thing, too, before we move on that was very interesting. The thing that really set off this powder keg is that a company called Binance, which is also large in the cryptocurrency space, was going to buy FTX.
Right.
And then it changed to, we're going to set up a plan to stabilize FTX. Then it became, there's something wrong here. We're backing out of the deal with FTX. So the follow-on question to ask yourself, because this came out yesterday when we shared the article with you about the CFTC and regulating crypto, the follow-on to that is that the CEO of Binance basically said he's now the cryptocurrency savior. We referred to him as Crypto Jesus. Now, all of a sudden, he's the savior in the fallout. What's going on here?
This is so fascinating. Let me get your response to this, because I'm reading basically the Daily Wire had done a summary of the Bloomberg piece here, just kind of explaining how the downfall began. And they say here that the users suddenly demanded $6 billion in withdrawals after an article was published by CoinDesk revealed that the two arms of Bankman-Fried's cryptocurrency, both FTX and the Alameda Research, which you mentioned, had significant overlap on their balance sheets in the form of the cryptocurrency FTT, which FTX actually invented. Why? I mean, I'm just wondering, what was it that were users all of a sudden, what did they see where all of a sudden they're demanding $6 billion back in withdrawals? What did we miss here? Or what am I missing? What did they see? What was the alert where they were like, oh crap, I'm getting away from this company? So
I'm wondering if somebody triggered it to be able to bring to light what's happening. One person says something and it's like, let's see what's really happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, wow. Was the timing right? Was the timing set up just right? And by the way, Carl, so it's interesting what you just described there with overlap in balance sheets and basically not having liquidity, right? What causes a bank run? People freak out that there isn't enough money. They start to panic and they all rush to the bank and try to get their money out. That's what caused the various panics throughout the history of the United States. What's interesting, though, in what you just described, it happens at the big banks around the world every single day. We made this statement a while back. I don't think we did it when we were with you last, but I want to make it now because it's important for people to understand that the financial system, these things are systemic in nature, right? So that's why you see when the regular economy bounces or spikes, you'll see crypto follow. So here's what's going on. The big banks around the world, the names that you know, we won't mention them here because we don't want to get sued by them, but you know who they are, right?
Right.
There was a law passed by Congress that those banks did not need to show short positions, basically things they were betting against on their balance sheet. Here's why, Carl. If the banks had to report that information, the entire world would know that they are all insolvent right now. And so what you're seeing is a microcosm version of how the actual economy is working around the world today. This is why there are all these warning signals about what's going on, and why we've said for the longest time, 2023 is going to be an incredibly bumpy year for people, and they need to get prepared. You're now just seeing the warning bells are sounding louder.
I noticed about 5 to 10 years ago, the banks started closing different branches. And I'm like, why are they closing branches? So I asked somebody recently, and they literally, like, every single bank is prepared to take crypto. They have all the technology already. It's just a matter of a switch turning it on.
Absolutely right, Carl. With that too, in that same conversation, one of our friends went in and asked if her bank, another major bank, was ready for this central bank digital currency thing. The response she got was, "We've been ready.
Yep.
We're just waiting on the government to pull the trigger."
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay, and this is honestly, this is it's just scary. I'm not going to lie to you. I feel like I'm looking at everything that's transpiring in America. Obviously, this stuff is happening globally, but everything is coming to fruition so fast. It is just freaking scary. I feel like the world is kind of collapsing on us. Obviously, if banks are insolvent, we're in some serious trouble. Which is, I mean, our economy is basically worse than we all realize at this point.
Well, China took over. So, this is the results of China's hands.
So there's been a destabilization over decades, Carl, that's happened. We've done extensive research on China. We actually sounded this alarm in our research back in 2015 when we said, China is going to work to dominate the African continent because that's where all the precious metals are, right? And now they own a number of ports on the African continent, and they own most of the mines, right? We did our forecast on precious metals the other day, and we talked about how when the resource wars start, because everybody wants to go green. Well, here, guess what happens, right? You know why catalytic converters get stolen? Here's why. Here's why. They contain rhodium, palladium, and platinum, 3 precious metals that make things that aren't supposedly so green more green, right? If you have a Prius, by the way, this is for you because you stand a larger chance of getting your catalytic converter stolen because it's bigger, right? Here's the problem, Carl. In order for things to be green, isn't it ironic you have to dig them out of the ground with diesel and heavy machinery to get to them?
Yep.
What do you think is going to happen? Right? So that's the state of our economy today. And look, what we said back then is that China is basically going to run out of ramp with their economy. They're kind of in the same boat as us. It's just with a totalitarian society and basically being really smart with how they exert their influence and their power, they've got more control of the situation. Oddly enough, the current administration in the White House seems to be pretty complicit all the way down to the style of dress yesterday, in case you haven't seen Joe Biden, in what they're going to do and what they're not going to do.
Yeah, I for the life of me, I don't understand. Okay, how do I frame this? All right, I understand what's happening with China. I understand what they're trying to do. I don't understand why people in the West wouldn't think that this is a lose-lose situation for us. I except to say that they're evil, except to say that they're elitist. I don't understand why they don't get that we don't win in any way, shape, or form.
Carl, here's what's sad, and I'm going to use the example of the CFTC here because it'll make sense for people. Money and influence cloud the judgment of the weak. If I'm not mistaken, this is biblical, right? Is that we were told to be aware and to use discernment, and so many people would fall for this stuff. The level of incompetence, some of it is incompetence, some of it is by design because those people are being paid. They believe money and power will keep them safe. And what they don't realize, what happens in all fascist or totalitarian dictatorships is they kill the quislings first, right? So if you're complicit and you'll turn against your fellow man, they know they can't trust you. So they'll kill you first.
But I think people are more waking up than not.
Yeah.
I think all the voting, all the stealing that happened, they were using the Democrats' votes, right? So they want us to believe that we're really leaning left and we're believing all this stuff that's happening,
Right.
when in fact, I don't think that's true. I really think that America is waking up and seeing what's happening. It's just a matter of when are we going to stand up and actually really do something about it.
And I think that's a fair point, because we've seen in the latest midterm elections that although the popular vote doesn't mean anything, obviously you're voting district by district when it comes to Congress, or statewide when it comes to the Senate. But the Republican Party actually garnered 6 million more votes this time around in the popular vote than the Democrat Party does. So that is indicative that the people do seem to be waking up. Unfortunately, I think our leadership is so freaking weak when it comes to both the Senate and the Congress. People were, giving McCarthy applause for having raised so much money. I'm like, yeah, I think there should have been a better return of investment on $500 million. That's just me. But I think you're right, Julianna. I guess I'm hoping that you're right. I want to go on to this connection and get you guys' take on this. Linda Fried, she's the aunt of SBF, or Sam Bankman-Fried. She's the dean of Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health, and she's also a co-chair of the World Economic Forum's
How convenient.
Global Future Council. This stuff, it almost, God almighty, this is what's crazy. When I heard stuff like this in the past, I'm just like, oh my God, these people are insane. These people are conspiracy theorists. Now I'm like, guys, we better wake up. Obviously, you guys have been sounding the alarm for quite some time. I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, there's probably things that we need to be aware of, but we're on the way, I think, to transitioning into this, into basically a socialist, a communist regime. Mm-hmm. And we're being gaslit. I think you're right, Julianna. I think more people are waking up to the truth, but you have the left that's in control of social media. Obviously the biggest way in which communication seems to be dispersed nowadays. You have this crypto giant, if you will, a former crypto giant now, colluding with big government, it seems, and a money laundering scheme. I mean, sending money to the Ukraine. Earlier this year, it says here, Bankman-Fried launched an initiative alongside Ukraine's Ministry of Digital Transformation to fundraise for the embattled nation, which has received billions in humanitarian and military aid from the Biden administration, which now, I mean, we know that Biden is corrupt as hell. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, Ukraine isn't getting all whatever people feel about Ukraine. Ukraine hasn't got all the weaponry that it's if you're going to get involved in a proxy war, that they should have gotten up front. It's almost as if, okay, we'll give dribs and drabs of money here for operations, but we really don't want to win there. And now it's hard to say that this isn't a money laundering scheme in large part.
So what I want to say is, earlier you said our leaders are weak. They're not weak. They're complicit. There's a big difference.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough. There's no doubt, especially with Mitch McConnell being involved in this, and obviously a lot of celebrities have gotten taken as well. What's the I don't know. I'm not even sure what to ask. I guess what's the solution for a Sam Bankman-Fried? This company is just gone. Like it'll never come to fruition again, right? Because a lot of this cryptocurrency has to be based in trust, right? So that's just over. That's just over and done with. So at this point, we're waiting to see whether or not SBF gets jailed, which I doubt will happen.
So as a market research company, we need to really be talking about what's really happening, not the lies, not the misnomers about what's happening, like what's really happening and what are the real solutions to what we're looking at. I love my pastor, but yesterday he was talking about, the left, and I wanted to say, you know what, but we're not taking into consideration how much of this has been stolen. And if you take that factor into consideration, then what's the real narrative? What should we be telling our brothers and sisters as to what's really going on? How do we battle, right, this fourth industrial revolution that we're in? Klaus Schwab says that we're at war, right? But the American people don't appreciate that. They don't see that. They're not acknowledging that. And it's time for us to go, wait a minute. So we as a market research company are saying we need to be really telling people what is the truth.
Cryptocurrency right now, this is going to scare a lot of people away, I think, from cryptocurrency. Would you guys recommend people stepping away from crypto?
No, not at all, Carl. Here's the thing, though. What you're seeing right now is you're seeing things shake out. You're seeing the players, right? So it's almost like the clothes have been stripped and they're buck naked now, so you can see who's doing what. We'll be making an announcement soon about something around the parallel economy that solves this problem in a very fundamental way. So the answer is no, don't step away. But what you're seeing, people are giving advice, don't keep your crypto on any exchanges unless you're trying to buy or sell real quick. Keep it offline in what they call a cold wallet or cold storage. That's the recommendation. Things are going to shake out and, we'll see who remains standing. One thing I would say, though, is keep an eye on Binance, because the statement that their CEO made yesterday is rather ominous. And what we said is that it's interesting that he would say that, and he's probably doing a lot of the same things that FTX did. You just haven't seen it yet. The other one that we want to point out here is that you see the government making a move to regulate. The CFTC now is stepping up and saying, we need to do this. If I can just give you an example of the level of incompetence and the level of complicit that there is within the government, here's the deal with the CFTC, right? And we've written extensively on the US versus Randall Crater cryptocurrency case because it's a bellwether. Here's what happened. Crater's defense team filed a motion for sanctions where they basically laid out how the CFTC's cryptocurrency expert didn't even know what a cryptocurrency was.
Whoa. Say that one more time, please.
So the Crater's legal team in his case filed a motion for sanctions. Basically, they said these people have no idea what they're doing, Your Honor. They've lied to you. You need to throw this thing out. They showed proof that the CFTC, in a deposition, their expert witness on cryptocurrency could not describe what a cryptocurrency actually was. These are the people that want to regulate this, Carl. What do you think is going on here?
Chicanery. That's what's going on.
Why is it safer to keep the crypto in a cold wallet as opposed to exchanges? For those that aren't as familiar like myself, what makes keeping it in a quote unquote cold wallet safer for the average crypto consumer?
So this is the difference between you having your gigantic sealed private vault in your house and keeping your money in a bank. So the cold wallet is the giant vault that's safe in your house, and the exchanges are the bank. So what's backing the crypto that's in the cold wallet to make it secure? What's giving it its value? Sure. So, Carl, the value is still going to be dependent on the community, right? So all economies are based on trust, by the way. This isn't just cryptocurrency. Carl and I trust that if we exchange dollars, we can get something else with them. That's what drives the economy, right? That's any economy. So Bitcoin isn't technically backed by anything other than the full faith and credit of the community, yet it's managed to survive. So a cold storage wallet is less about the value of the cryptocurrency. That's determined by the economy. It's whether or not people you don't want to get to it can get to it or not. Hackers are super sophisticated. And over the years, the one practice that is held true is that if you have your crypto in a wallet that isn't online, so a cold storage wallet that you have with you, you are safe because you're the only one that has those keys. And by the way, if you do that, please don't lose your passkey because there are people with millions of dollars in Bitcoin that can't get to it because they forgot their password. Oh my God. Okay, let me ask this question. This guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, people were loaning him money out the wazoo. He was donating money upwards. I thought I read $39 million to the Democrat Party. They were giving him his exchange was crypto and exchange, I guess, for fiat currency around the world.
But if that money is no longer protected, if you will, I don't even know if I'm making sense here, but like by a big cold wallet, I guess I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to ask. How is it that he's able to exchange crypto for fiat money? Was it backed by anything? Was his money, was his crypto backed by anything? Is it just the community of the people, the 1 million people, I guess, that are actually exchanging on FTX? How is that crypto secure? If that makes any sense. I'm trying to make sense of this.
So here's the thing, right? Is that we've said to people, they said, all this money is gone. Well, we're like, it had to go somewhere, right? If there is a loser, there is a winner, right?
So the people lost and the winner was?
Dun, da, da, da. So isn't it interesting that SBF and a couple of others were getting money out before the bottom fell out? Sounds kind of like a pump and dump scheme, doesn't it, Carl?
Wow.
So again, if he says, I had no idea this was coming, if that's the case, buddy, how did your 16 billion in net worth go to 1 billion that you had locked away and stored all of a sudden? What did you know was coming that the rest of us didn't know was coming?
Ponzi scheme to the max, huh?
Yes.
So not all of these things. There are some legitimate operators out there, but
sure.
Carl, it's like, you ask yourself the question, it's like, I need to look at all the connections on anything I use to make sure I understand what's going on here. And it's like, how was this guy, you mentioned this earlier, but it's important to bring up again. How did this guy have so much leeway to do this? And why didn't Sequoia, as the lead investor in FTX, take a board seat and provide independent oversight of an organization that was dealing with billions and billions of dollars?
Complicit.
Carl, if we tried to do that, we'd be in jail.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it makes total sense. And as well, you should. And obviously this guy's, man, as soon as you guys said dump, what was it, pump and dump? I'm like, it all kind of clicked for me, and it made sense here. I'm like, holy, this is insane. How can, all right, you said the best thing to do is for people to basically safeguard their crypto, keep it in a cold wallet. This is going to, I think what you guys are saying, correct me if I'm wrong, this story goes out, and instead of looking at the corruption within FTX, the connections that he had, people are going to say, oh crap, to crypto, this is too insane. Government, jump in to regulate this right now. So what you're saying is, and guys, forgive me, because I mean, you guys are the experts on this stuff. I'm just trying to, I'm trying to figure it out. Essentially, and I think you've already said this, Julianna, they're creating, by talking up this story, they're creating this narrative that crypto is extremely dangerous, a dangerous investment. And so the government must rush in to save the day.
Correct.
Absolutely correct, Carl. And that's why we tell people, no, don't bail out. Don't beg the government. Don't beg for statism, right? Because that leads to fascism, which leads to totalitarianism, which leads to the end of the country. Don't allow them to do this to you again. They keep hustling you with regulation and will save you. Don't let them do it now.
So this is not financial advice, but I would tell people, have your money diversified. Have it in trade and barter. Have it in gold and silver. Have it in crypto, because the fiat's done. Have other country currencies. Diversify.
Let me read a couple of quotes from Sam Bankman-Fried, SBF, before we I just want to get your take on it. He says, at the onset of the conflict in Ukraine, FTX, this is regarding Ukraine, and then I'll read another one. At the onset of the conflict in Ukraine, FTX felt the need to provide assistance in any way it could. And he says, he goes on to say, by working with the Ministry of Digital Transformation to set up payment rails and facilitate the conversion of crypto donations into fiat currency, we have given the National Bank of Ukraine the ability to deliver aid and resources to the people who need it most. if this is a pump and dump scheme, what the, I mean, explain, take something, Carl, give me something on this quote. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah. Carl, so let's break that down for you real quick, because you said some really important things there. The Ministry of Digital Transformation.
Yep.
Biden's executive order on cryptocurrency and technology. The National Bank, the Fed, right, and by attachment, the government regulating for stability purposes.
With the WEF.
With the WEF. If anybody's a Star Wars fan, it's like Chancellor Palpatine said, for a safe and secure society. Sounds like Klaus Schwab, right? But listen, what you just said is what they want to do here.
Yep.
Ukraine was a test, and it's also a money laundering pit.
Holy crud. And we're sitting there, rah, rah, rah. Oh, man. And what's crazy is, all right, so the cause is just, at least initially, I didn't want Putin to invade Ukraine. I don't think he would have if Trump were in office. But then you kind of create this just cause that everyone could get behind. And then all of a sudden there we go, sending tons and tons of money. Whereas, yeah, I want Ukraine as a buffer between NATO allies and Russia. But this is all, man, this is just insane. So there may be people that legitimately want Ukraine to win against Russia. And then there's our leaders that are like, we don't care if this war ever ends because we are making too much money and gaining too much power off of this war in Ukraine. Holy crud. All right. Another thing that he says, or let me just read from this Daily Wire column here. And there's a quote from the FTX General Counsel, Ryan Miller, that I want to get your take on. Hours after the company filed for bankruptcy, FTX General Counsel Ryan Miller said that executives were, quote, investigating abnormalities with wallet movements. The company initiated, that's a close quote, the company initiated, quote, precautionary steps to move all digital assets to cold storage, close quote, which you guys mentioned, as risk management firm Elliptic reported that as much as $477 million was missing from FTX in a suspected hack. That's a lot. So if I need to go back through that, I read more than I intended, to be honest, but you guys are so brilliant. I figured you'd chalk it up.
So, okay, wow. Let's take the last part first. So $470 million gets lost in the fray. Lost. Carl, you ever been down to the shore where, because you think about it, you were in LA, right? So you ever gone down and watched the shell game on the beach, how they do the ball and they do with the shells and everything?
Yeah. Oh my God.
You can never find out where that ball is, yet it's there the whole time. Where did it go? Right?
Oh, man.
Well, the guy who's doing that already has it in his back pocket, so it's not there. And this isn't all that dissimilar. In chaos, take midterm elections in the United States, the economy, everything. In chaos, you can get a lot of stuff done, including moving hundreds of millions of dollars and saying it disappeared in a hack. Interesting and convenient that happened when FTX touted on multiple occasions they were super safe and everything was fine.
It's all story control.
Yeah, it's super narrative control, man. I think you were talking about that a lot last night with narrative and everything. It's true in all things, Carl, and now it's accelerated.
Wow. Oh, man. So anybody, it's sad. I mean, even I'm looking at stars here that have obviously lost their money. They're not going to be able to get that money back. It's gone, right? I mean, Shaq, you got Tom Brady. So many people. I had a list here of the comedian Larry David, Logan Paul, all of these people. Their money is essentially gone. The quarterback for the Jaguars, I think, had a lot of his. Where did I see that? Now it's hard to. I didn't highlight it. But it sounded like he had a lot of his salary or bonus, at least. Maybe it was just his bonus tied up with this firm in cryptocurrency. That's just gone.
Yeah, gone to somebody else. You know,
Exactly.
our only hope here is that some of this can be found or recovered or conveniently shows back up. But it shows you, right, that there's an irrational exuberance when a narrative is created, but people don't see the long game, right? All of this was created in essence to usher in more control. And I think that's the part people are missing, right? Did the money laundering, is it happening? Absolutely. Are there all of these connections? Absolutely. But make no mistake that when things like this happen, they are a play for more government control for your safety and your security. And you can see it more clearly now than you could even the last time that we talked.
Okay, so let's pretend that we lived in a free society and the ideal situation, government wasn't involved. This Ponzi scheme was exposed. What should happen, and how would you resurrect, if you even could, because I guess it's based on credibility, a company like this? But in an ideal world, if government wasn't involved, what should be happening with this with this story?
I think we noticed that government being involved caused the issue. I think if we were democratized and we had these different cryptocurrency companies, right, the competition and the faith in the people would in essence help them self-regulate, because we would demand that instead of the government coming in and corrupting one cryptocurrency company.
Yeah, free market ideals work, Carl, and trust in economies works when people feel like they can actually trust it. But when you get the grifters in, you know, we talk about the masters of the grifterverse, which is basically Congress. When you get these people in with their own interests, they start doing things because people aren't looking. We talked to a number of candidates from here in Florida that won their elections and either returning to Congress or are going for the first time. And we said, unlike any other point probably in our modern history, people are going to be watching every move you make to make sure that you're working in their best interests. Yeah. Here's the spoiler alert, Carl, that should have been happening all along. We got lazy because we were in a position where we're like, well, everything's great. Everything's okay. Trump was a great president, right? But we got complacent because we thought everything was going to be okay forever instead of being vigilant, which is what the framers of this country told us to do.
Well, like, for example, here in Florida, we saw the voting machines and the issues that were happening in 2020. Well, guess what? We saw it again in 2022. Like, why are we still dealing with this? We acknowledge the fact that we had an issue back, you know, a couple of years ago. Why wasn't it fixed?
Yeah, there's no doubt. Something has to be done about this. Stuff. And you know, in a weird way, I'm almost assuming that Republicans actually win the House, despite the fact that I would really love a new leader. But regardless, if they actually do win the House, and I'm not counting on it until I actually see the numbers really come in here, I think it's almost a blessing in disguise, because I don't think they can get away with lying to us. I don't think they could get away with because the stakes will be too large if they have a slim majority. It's going to force people to pay more attention to what's happening in Washington, D.C. Unfortunately, I'm concerned because Pennsylvania and Arizona, I mean, Republicans and attorneys from all over the country should have been on that, watching every single ballot, demanding access. I mean, everywhere, because I'm like, those are swing states. And I just think the presidency got harder to win in 2024, regardless of who the nominee is, because as Republicans, we sat back and now we've allowed Democrats to almost totally control a couple of swing states that are crucial to the presidency.
Carl, here's a tough question for everyone to ask themselves, right? This is the double-edged sword of the 9th and 10th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. We are a union of states that is supposed to have a small federal government to handle defined things. We've let that get completely out of hand. While we want to see the changes in Pennsylvania and Arizona, it's the responsibility of the people who live in those states to say enough.
That's right.
No more. Can we help them? Absolutely. Should we be pouring to help them? Absolutely. But it has to be led by them, Carl, because each state has its own rules and standards, right? People like an Ann Vandersteel who went to Arizona and is there on the ground fighting, saying enough. Everybody that lives in those states that feels like an injustice has been done needs to do that, or else this will never get fixed. It's not going to come from on high, Carl. It's going to be the same thing that happened in 1776 and through the War for Independence. 3% of the population fought in the War for Independence, and they won. It takes a few, a remnant, as the good book says, to get it done, but they've got to get it done.
So now we're talking about becoming a state national, giving up your citizenship, right? Asking Ron DeSantis to make us a republic of Florida instead of the state of Florida, and having that little level of separation between us and the federal government, because they are tyrannical at this point, left or right.
That's a good point. That's a topic for another day. You're absolutely right, because Texas happens to be a republic. That is right.
Correct.
All right. Good point, man. All right, so we started talking about crypto and end on being a republic. That's pretty fascinating, guys. Listen, I appreciate you guys coming on, and for those of you that are listening, I don't even think I introduced the podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast, SalemPodcastNetwork.com, theCarlJacksonShow.com. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can find me. Please help out our friends at mypillow.com. Help out Mike Lindell. You can help out this podcast. It's Christmas time, or Christmas season. Christmas is coming up now. Election season. We have election season and we have Christmas season in America, but Christmas season I really like. I hate election season, but I love Christmas season. Go to mypillow.com, click on that radio listener square, or actually just type in the promo code Carl, CARL, and all of the discounts that are available to you will be, you can just search the website and go crazy for Christmas, or you can give them a call, 1-800-858-0263. There are discounts up to 66% off if you use that promo code. And you also support American jobs and American manufacturing. Guys, if people want to find out more about what you do and find out more about crypto, give us some of the best places to go to find you.
Sure. So our publication, Sherloc Exposes, Carl, is a great place for people to go. We do a daily newsletter called Rip from the Headlines. They can find that at SherlocExposes.com, and we spell Sherlock without a K. So SherlocExposes.com. If they want to find out more about Sherloc Market Research, we work in a number of industries and areas providing research and competitive intelligence. They can go to InvestInAnswers.com. That's InvestInAnswers.com, and they can find out all about us and what we do and how we're working to help.
And I really appreciate your patience. Sometimes I'm answering or asking questions like, do I even know what the hell I'm saying right now? But I sit there and I have confidence that you guys can figure out.
We love you, Carl.
What I am trying to say, and hopefully help other people that are just novice when it comes to this whole concept of cryptocurrency. But I think the major takeaway here is that you guys are right. These people create this narrative about crypto when the issue really is a bunch of elitists that are networking together to create this money laundering scheme, when at the same time they're trying to gain even more control over the population. And it's it's absolutely a fascinating story. And it's what's crazy is we can almost, or I think I shouldn't say we can almost, we should look at every story that comes out now with a bit of skepticism, especially after what we've seen in this election cycle, leading into the next election cycle. And I'll just close. This is so random, but I'll close with this. I was looking into whether or not there is true evidence to suggest that Dobbs actually swayed the election, the reversal of Dobbs. And listen, as a pro-lifer, I would say, okay, if we lose one chamber of the Congress for an election cycle in order to save the lives of babies, so be it. That's my mindset. But also, as I started investigating, the numbers don't even add up. The Democrats had better numbers in 2018 compared to 2020 with younger voters. The only thing that makes sense is they kept this election season so long, particularly in places like Pennsylvania, where it was 50 days of election season, where people may have felt strongly about the overturning of Roe v. Wade, nearly 2 months ago, and felt completely differently 2 months later when gas prices and food prices were starting to surge yet again. So I think that's the only thing that explains it. People voted way too early. They counted that. But in the long run, they're just creating this narrative, I think, that, abortion is what lost Republicans this red wave when there probably wasn't going to be a red wave. But the goal is to make us shut up about abortion.
Carl, quickly, one of the things we recommend for all conservatives, because we don't do this enough, we don't study as much as we should. Every conservative should read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. Once you read that book, you will completely understand how this operates, how the Democrats do what they do, and how they can keep something like the Roe versus Wade, the decision going back to the states, they can blow it up into an issue that's going to, you have to vote, it's your life, and then they win on it.
Meanwhile, P.S. they weren't allowed. The court wasn't allowed to say that it's we can't be doing that. That's a state issue. That's not a federal issue.
Unbelievable. All right, guys. Listen, I appreciate you coming back today to make me a little smarter. Definitely appreciate that. Appreciate your time. Guys, I've already told you all the places to connect. I really do appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. And until next time, do not grow weary, doing good, and God bless you.